here's what I want you all to be thinking of, and I would like our panelists to be thinking the same thing. If you had one critical question you could ask a panel of experts on marketing today, what would that one question be? And as a vice president of a media group or the publisher of an art magazine, what one question do you have for a social media expert, and vice versa? So we'll get to that in a minute. Let me introduce who we have up here. At the end down there, Robin is back up with us in her role not only as our new executive director for American Women Artists, but also in her role as a gallery owner and someone who did a terrific job of marketing her artists in print and through social media. Next to her, we have Leah Lopez, who's a member of our board of directors. She's a New York City-based artist. She also has an atelier, and she is one busy person, especially with an especially big presence online. So we'll talk about that. Next to her, we have Kate Austin-Avon, yes? And she is the owner of Advocate, a small business that does social media marketing, and you're New York-based, correct, in the state of New York? Glens Falls, there she is. All right, me, yeah, whatever, you already know me. Rita, we've had a chance to get to know Rita, and thank you very much for giving us kind of a personal sense of how you operate that magazine. I wish every magazine operated that way. I'm going to send you some cards. And finally, on the end here, Alan Doerr, publisher of Art in the West magazine. And we're so appreciative to Alan and his wife who drove out here from Minnesota to attend this show and be a part of this panel. So what I'd like to do, and we'll be passing the mic, but I want to pass the mic down to Alan first, and just give us a short kind of overview of what you see your mission is, your mission statement, your elevator speech for Art in the West magazine. And there's some maybe still some left out in the lobby if you want to pick one up afterwards. What is your mission in relationship to the artist?
Thank you. Glad to be here. In just a few words, that's difficult, but our mission is to sell art for the artists. All the wonderful things that have gone on here with this show, the beautiful pieces of work, unless they find a home, it's not ended. So everything we try to do in Art of the West, number one, quality art. We try to get the collector to learn about an artist on a personal basis as well as their skills. And from there, we hope it just continues to branch out so people can get that personal feeling. When I look at our art collection and I see a piece of art, whether it's a painting or a sculpture, I see the artist as much as I see that piece. So there is that personal connection, and we hope that we can continue just to drive that home to let collectors know what an incredible part of their life art can be.
Okay, and now we're going to turn to Kate, the other person we haven't really heard from yet today. And if there was a number one misconception that your clients have about social media when they come to you, like what's the number one thing they just kind of don't get that you have to set them straight on?
I guess it depends on the generation of the client.
She said diplomatically.
That's a tough one. Their misconception, I think, if they have no experience with social media, it's just about getting their foot in the door and getting them comfortable with it. If they think it's going to be a time suck, and it is, but there's ways to manage that. You can schedule it. You can step away from it. It's okay. So I think it's a tough question because I don't know that they have a lot of misconceptions. They're they're pretty accurate in their assumption of it's going to suck up your time and it's going to be a little invasive, but it's worth it. So that's
All right. And how would you define social media, your elevator speech?
How would I define social media? Well, Advocate is a multi-layer approach. I do web design, graphic design, PR, marketing consultation, and social media guidance for my clients. And I usually say start with Facebook. For artists, Instagram is very visual and very effective. And then go from there based on your comfort level. You don't have to do everything and make yourself insane. So that's,
All right, so I don't have to be on Snapchat?
you don't have to. It's fun.
So when I was listening to Aaliyah earlier talk about women painting women, what I thought was interesting is, I thought we are sitting in this room in Vermont, and we're listening to a woman talk about the birth of an art movement. And we're seeing it at its initial inception. And so I'm thinking these, long-term thoughts, like if I was writing a textbook, how would I describe this? And of course, she goes on to say, and the first thing we did is we secured the domain name. Oh, yeah, of course that's what you do when you're starting a movement now, is you secure the airspace or the internets, the interwebs, you make sure you lock that down. But what I found interesting was, as she said, and then this happened, and then this happened, and suddenly we had a show, and then she started showing the magazines. And it made me think of that child's book, The Velveteen Rabbit. We became real once we hit the magazine. So speaking on behalf of artists and gallery owners out there, I have to say, because I do a lot of my own marketing, I'm really pushed. I'm pushed for the time I have to put into social media, and magazine advertising is expensive. I have to really think carefully about it. I know a lot of you will have questions about it. But that idea that somehow it became real in visual art once it hit that publication, I found interesting, and I think that's a theme that we're going to come back to. I want to cut down now to Robin. As a former gallery owner, what were your challenges in marketing your gallery and your artists in terms of just how much there is out there to do and market in?
Well, I think the two things are time and money. I mean, those were really the limitations, as you all know, when you're doing social media and then you're also dealing with the print media. It's so time consuming. I would say that I worked 90% on marketing and 10% on everything else that it takes to run a gallery. It's just so time consuming. And like Rita was saying, I had to keep up personal relationships with various magazines, and then it's not only the national magazines, it's your regional magazines, and it's your local, print media. And then you have your relationship with your artists, and then the whole social media aspect. I eventually got an assistant who just did social media, and we branched into video. So video became very important to us, and we would post videos on YouTube of the artists in their studios before a show. But it's really, time is just, it's very difficult to manage. And then of course money, because all the advertising is very, very expensive, and like you said, you have to do it very wisely, but it's very important to do it. And I feel if a gallery is mature enough in that it's making a certain amount of money, it should handle the advertising for the artists for their shows. I really feel that's important, that they pick that up 100%. Now, it doesn't mean the artists can't advertise the show as well, and other venues, particularly social media. But I do think that is a responsibility of the gallery.
Which I'd like to. I'm going to hand this back to you, Alan. Get ready. Do you find, and this may be a two-part question, that most of your advertising comes from individual artists or from galleries? And how do you work your relationships with those two entities? Because I think as artists, some of us are finding that traditional roles that galleries had in marketing our work are changing dramatically. And as artists, a lot of us are really expected to carry a lot more of the ball than we used to.
Thank you. Good question. Certainly the role of the gallery has diminished to some degree, but we preach that galleries are so important. They're open all year long. They represent so many ways to get credibility for the artist. The artist and the gallery hopefully can form a partnership, and it's nice when the galleries will flip the bill to do advertising. Sometimes it's a cooperative effort between the advertiser and the artist and the gallery. I would say now more of our advertising is coming directly from artists, but if they have gallery representation, we preach to them. It's their responsibility, it's their decision, but we really suggest that they put the gallery names in the ad, even if the artist is paying for it totally. It gives the credibility to the gallery, it gives it back to the artist, and hopefully it will incentivize the gallery along the way to also kick in some or do some on their own.
And let's give Rita the same question. Now, Rita just explained how much direct communication they have directly with the artists. How many ads, or do you have a percentage? What are you getting from galleries these days as far as representing artists? Or is it most of it coming from individuals?
It depends on the issue. And actually, Tim, could you throw me a copy of the magazine? What we found that we had to do is, because the gallery season is constant, residencies and workshops are constant, artists are constantly creating work, that there had to be a place in the magazine for everybody, for every reason, at every time. So that, and at an accessible price point. We've made some very concerted efforts, even with Editorial, to support the gallery world. We bought the magazine during the recession, so that was tough. We watched a lot of changes. We used to have a massive art guide section, which was what we refer to as an affordable section of the magazine for gallery display space. The magazine is broken up with the larger display ads towards the front, opposite the editorial. Then there's art guide, which are small ads. You can fit 6 on a page. You can buy them in 6 or thirds. And then there's a section in the back called exhibition listings. And we noticed art guide gets smaller and exhibition listings get much bigger as the recession went on. So we learned, wow, don't raise your prices on exhibition listings because, as we were saying, the galleries are often co-opting the ads with the artists. We try to encourage the galleries to do that. But the artists, even if the gallery wasn't contributing, still wanted to find a way to access the readership. And as the readership grew, it became even more important. So we kept exhibition listings very, very modestly priced. And that section we put online too. So for one very low number, you get the print and the web. Galleries are, I think, it's hard to say. One minute I think certain galleries are struggling, the next I hear 5 just opened. Our gallery issue is this issue. And there was enough positive news that we created a 2-page gallery spread in the front. We call it Gallery Flashpoints. So I can't tell you the state of the state for galleries, but I can say that they still have a major presence in the book.
Okay. And now from an artist's point of view, Leah, I'm going to come to you and ask you, how has your concept of what you need to do for your own marketing changed? And what kinds of things are you doing? And I know you've got very much a social media presence.
Well, I guess I sympathize with Rita and something Robin was saying. I avoided doing social media as long as possible. I didn't I didn't want to expose myself and show, what is it, that show and tell kind of thing. I wasn't up for that, but I did find that it was very important, and the thing that really made the switch for me was that I found if I spoke to an audience or created in my mind an audience that was more like people I knew personally, like in my atelier, I speak to them, the things I share. On one page, I'm sharing things that they might enjoy. On my personal page, I'm just being me. And on my art page, I'm posting things that have more to do with art and more the professional side. And in a way, it's actually liberated me. I feel kind of like I can be a whole person. There are different facets of me. There are different sides. And social media has allowed me to explore those in a way that I didn't know was there. But also, I as a business entrepreneur and artist, I have to think about print, and so I do print media. I do other paid web advertising, and whatever I can, because it's important to let people know what you're doing. If being an artist is important, you have to support yourself. And you have to find a way that, it's not just allowing you to keep doing this fun thing. It's about goals. It's a business. It is a business on one side. You want to think about what you're trying to achieve, who are you speaking to, what are the big plans for you in the next 10 years. And you work towards them. And when does that cover all those questions? That's about it.
Okay, so as an artist, I wish I could just be in the studio and create. And Christy and I had a little conversation last night because she's lucky enough to be in galleries where they handle everything, and she gets to just paint. A lot of us aren't in that situation. And the galleries that I'm in fully expect me to do at least 50% of all the ad costs and a whole lot of the marketing. And I bet a lot of you are probably in the same position. And it really eats into my studio time. So what's the number one thing that those of us that are on Instagram and Facebook, let's just take those two, maybe Twitter, what could we do to streamline the time that we spend on this stuff? What would you suggest?
I'd say schedule it.
How?
Mondays, you're going to do this. Tuesdays, you're going to do this. In the morning, you're just going to do it for an hour. Put it on your calendar as I'm going to do it from here to here. And as an artist, I don't know that it's the same as being a brand like some food company, or you don't have to instantly reply because people expect you to be doing your work too. You don't have a customer service department that's going to be on all the time. So I think the expectations are different for artists than they would be for a national brand with a sales department. So I think just scheduling it and saying I'm gonna do this on these days, that makes it so that the thing that I don't like to see is that somebody just gets so overwhelmed that they set it up and they just never touch it again. And I think there's a number of artists that do that. They say, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna set it up, and then they just say, this is overwhelming, forget it. And if you just say, okay, you know what, it's going to take, depending on your level and depending on your goals, it's going to take an hour a week, and I'm just going to do it for an hour on, Friday mornings or something. Put it on your calendar and don't not do it either. Pick a thing that's manageable and do it, and then step away. I think that's the way to do it. Yeah.
I still have mixed feelings about the value of some social media, even after having done it for a number of years with the gallery. And I understand when you have an opening and things like event-oriented things, it's really good. But my social media employee and I ran an experiment, and we occasionally would put a post of dogs, our dogs, on there. And the dog post always got the biggest hits. So then I just thought, really, what is the value of this? Except for posting pictures of your dogs.
Okay, Alan, I want to ask, now we didn't hear about Art in the West and social media, and so I would like to hear how you think it's impacted your magazine and how you integrate it with your magazine.
I know I lose a half hour of my life every day going over Facebook posts. Good or bad, I'm not sure. I understand the value. I see most of the posts where artists will put a new image on that they've done. I think it's great. I will oftentimes like it. I very seldom will comment, because if I comment, I get every other comment that's ever been made on that post, and that takes half the day. So we use social media, we use Facebook postings for some of the special sections we have coming up, or some special announcements, or our 29th anniversary coming up, those types of things. We don't do as good a job in the social media realm as we should. We don't have the time. We are trying to understand more of what it can do to benefit us, but we try to get as many announcements out. We try not to overload it. And nor do I try to spend as much time on it as I probably should, but I don't.
So for those of us who post on social media when we have a show opening up and then forgot we opened that Instagram account for the following 3 months, is there a tool or a software app or something that people over 40 could use and understand that would expedite this?
If you make an alert on your Google Calendar to remind yourself.
Or like a TweetDecky kind of thing?
There's Hootsuite. There are some things where you can kind of see all of your social media in one place and schedule it. I live in the computer, so I don't. I mean, I'm just always doing it. So maybe I'm not the best person to
speak slowly.
But there are programs like Hootsuite or TweetDeck.
So Hootsuite, expand.
So you can load all of your social media accounts into one place. You can see all of your feeds at a glance, and you can schedule posts that way.
Where do we get this magical thing?
Hootsuite.com, probably? Yeah. HOOTSUITE. Like, yeah, Hoot, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So where could people go and get it?
Hootsuite, yeah. Open the computer. Sorry.
You had to go there.
Yeah, Hootsuite.com, I think, is probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't use it. Yeah.
And then what? They talk about technology being disruptive, and obviously we're all artists in the age of a disruptive technology. We're publishers in the age of disruptive technology, and it makes it confusing, especially to those of us who do traditional or even contemporary realistic art. You know, if the future of art is in virtual reality or 3D printed images or stuff that with technology that we can't even imagine yet, and we're just trying to wrap our minds around how do we get the word out about who we are and what we're doing, which is a good transition to open this up now. And we want to field some of your questions. What would you like? You have access to experts up here. Yes, sir.
Well, on the social media discussion, I'm an artist. I'm building a new website, and I have a post. A WordPress post. A WordPress blog, rather. And I'm wondering, with the new website, everything I hear or read about is, you have to have a blog in your website. But my problem is, whenever I post anything on the blog, takes up a lot of time, and I'm wondering, is it worth it, and all that kind of stuff. What do you say about blogs and marketing? Is it better to do a bunch of little short ones, and you know?
Do you live in this area? Where do you live?
Pardon me?
Where do you live? What region do you live in?
I live right here locally.
You should hire her.
I live in Dorset, Vermont.
You have a quick answer there.
Well, let me pass this mic, and then I can jump in.
I'm worried about how much time I should be spending on posts that maybe is not worth it.
Well, I'm going to endorse what was it?
Squarespace?
Thank you. Website. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Squarespace. Because I think it's really important, if you want to save time, to have a website that you can actually share your blog immediately. So you do everything, you design it in your blog, and then you select what social media you want it to go out to. That way you're not copying and pasting everything into every single social media. And it takes a little bit of upfront time to sort of get acquainted with Hootsuite and Squarespace, how your website is going to work. But once you do that, you can kind of come up with a system that works for you, and then you know where to shoot things to, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, and I believe on WordPress, you have WordPress.com, a website on WordPress.com. It's not self-hosted. So,
The new one is WordPress.org.
yeah, there's two, there's WordPress.com, there's WordPress.org. WordPress.com is like blogger.com, where you basically have an account on that website and it's hosted with them. And that's a good starter place. And if you want to step things up, then you can export that website and import it into a self-hosted website that's built on WordPress platform, which is what WordPress.org is. To answer about, and I believe on WordPress.com, I think similarly to Squarespace, you would be able to say, to connect it to your social and share it that way. But to get back to your worry about that you're writing it and nobody's seeing it, sharing it on Facebook and maybe boosting some posts on Facebook to get it out there is worthwhile. I just Googled this the other day. Ideal length of a blog post. If you look at, it'll tell you how many words that it's going to capture somebody's attention, but not just be like, oh, well, that was useless. So that might be something to look at, and it's okay to vary the lengths too. Like, not every post has to be, an in-depth, 5,000 word essay. It might be just a shot of something that you're working on and say, here's what I'm working on, it's going in this direction, and just have a little blurb, and just to kind of pepper that in so that you're not feeling overwhelmed every time, it's on your calendar to do a blog post.
Okay, and on the questions, let's keep them kind of big picture marketing questions with these experts up here, because boy, we could get down in the weeds on the technical stuff. Now, Hootsuite, there you go. That's a good one. Yes, Diana.
Building your friends. We're all talking about friends, and what I realized at some point is that, I have 400 friends over on my personal page, and on my professional page, I have 84, okay? And I only really care on my professional page who sees what I'm doing, and I just randomly decided that I would go to some curators' Facebook pages and like them and so forth, because I'm trying to target who those friends are. Is there a more effective way to target those kinds of people and friend them on the professional page than just my randomly deciding who it is I want to?
You put up dog pictures.
She's not wrong.
See, I was not wrong.
No, you want to attract more likes to your page. Right.
Not friends go, that's really great.
Right. So that there's the personal page versus the. So joining groups on Facebook is handy. That's a great way to kind of find people who are interested in that kind of a thing. Boosting posts, paying a little money. Is an effective way to get more people to pay attention to your page. The thing is, the page likes are really only an indicator of how popular you are. It's not that all of those people are even going to see your posts the way that the algorithms are right now. So certainly you want to have more than 84 because then you look really credible. So it's important to work on that. But if you're thinking about just getting your work in front of people, you might think about Facebook groups or boosting posts. Does anybody else want to talk?
Okay, back to the Velveteen Rabbit, though. And something only becomes real when we see it in print. Because I saw some statistics recently that said very few of us read online magazines. We look at posts, but there are whole magazines that are published completely digitally online, and very few of us get our information that way, where it's much higher for print magazines. So let me take a version of that question and throw it back over here to Alan and Rita and say, as an artist, if I'm sharing my expenses with a gallery, or if I'm completely on my own and I want to establish a presence, say a presence in New England or a presence in the Western art world, how many times should I have an ad in your magazine? Let's start with Alan. Or is that, am I begging the question? Am I assuming the answer to the question as I ask it? Maybe you have a much different answer.
Before I answer that, let me just, on the social media side, just a quick thing. Moving it off the Facebook page and back onto your web page. When we look at different artists and want to find out more, make sure you have a mission statement that makes sense and personifies who you are, and then show your images. I'm not so interested in the blogs. I'm interested in the images. But I'm really interested in that mission statement that makes you tick, and I think that's important. On the ad side, we get asked that question a lot, and it basically gets down to the amount of money that person, artist, or gallery is willing to invest. And we do say that the consistency is much more important than the size. If somebody can only afford so many dollars, I'd rather see them do a smaller size and run it at least 3 consecutive times, hopefully 6. But the consistency, building up the image, building up the recognition, I think is critical.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's interesting, sales for Art New England are handled very differently than sales for the other publications like Playbill or Panorama. Those conversations are relatively short. Oh, we want to be in this season for summer, or we want to be in this show. When an artist calls or a gallery calls with that same goal of a consistent presence, or you've got special shows coming up, it becomes a conversation, and it's much, much longer, like 30 minutes or so, and multiple conversations. And we become consultants, and that's why I feel the magazine has grown so steadily, because we learned the more we invested in the conversation with what your needs were and what your budget constraints were, the stronger the magazine would ultimately become. I'm not going to encourage anyone to buy a half-page display ad once and have it not work, because then you're going to be discouraged and not work with us again. But if your budget allows for exhibition listings or artist directory, because not everybody has a show every issue, so there might not be, a reason to be in every issue, but you certainly want to support a show or something that you have coming up, then we're going to spend your money with you very wisely, and then we're going to talk about the value-added things that we can do either through the website or some other partnership that we may have that would support that investment. Money's tight, and we get that.
Okay, a couple of concrete takeaways here thus far. Hootsuite mission statement. How many artists out there have a mission statement on their homepage? Artist statement, all right. Will you accept that in lieu of a mission statement, sir? All right then. Back to questions. Yes?
Yeah, hi. First of all, I'm going to get all gushy. Art New England has been my go-to place, and I've advertised in the artist directory. And we used to be neighbors. I lived in Fort Point for 35 years before I moved here 2 years ago. I used to run into you in Sportello all the time. This Sportello's everything bagels. What I loved about it is I could afford to advertise in the artist directory. And
explain what that is. It happens twice per year in the September-October gallery issue, which we thought was strategic, artist directory in the gallery issue, and then the March-April issue. So the rates are very accessible. A sixth of a page is $195. This becomes a flip book online for 6 months. So, and there's a discount if you go into both issues. And it's incredibly, I mean, this book is read with a Sharpie. So I always hear that from people and they apologize for it, but we like it. So this is what Artist Direct, and American Women Artists has a spread in here.
Yeah, I do the social, I'm sort of a psychotic social media person. In the winter or at night when there's nothing good on TV, I tweet like crazy. Or I blog in the winter because there's nothing,
Yeah.
there's nothing to do at night except.
Or you can move to California, it's warmer, there's more. We have a question from Minnesota.
Okay, so this is more of a comment, but I'm relating to what you're saying totally. And so I just kind of want to advocate a little bit for, it seems like we've been talking a lot about social media and the fears of it. So I'm a little bit of a junkie too. However, with Facebook, I used to be like really a big blogger, and it took up a lot of time. I do a newsletter through my website. It takes up a lot of time. I don't do that. It's more edited and professional, and maybe once a month, sometimes more than once a month, I'll do a newsletter. It takes up a long morning, but it's important. I believe in spreading the wealth. So I'm not wealthy. I'm getting there though. But my art supports me, and I really believe in developing a relationship with, for instance, a magazine, a gallery, relationships in business, and I just wanted to advocate for what Art of the West is doing. So thinking, hearing, I can't afford big ads. What I have found to be true in my very poorest times, even when I couldn't afford to buy my little boy a Gatorade, is that magazines that are good want to help you and work with you as a partnership. So one of my goals, a long time ago in January, I started making artistic and career and goals. And one was to be frequently promoting my work in some gallery. So every year, I decide which magazine am I going to focus on, and which one am I going to build a relationship with. And I just kind of love to observe what's happening and which magazines are just taking any art, just to make an ad, or don't have really good content. So I care what the content is, and so that's how I select. And it could be, it's not subject matter for me. So I, this year, had chose, I love Art of the West magazine because of the content and the quality, and he's not paying me. At all. But it's just an example, because I love other magazines too. But it's not subject. I do not paint cowboys and Indians. That's what people ask me. They say, "Oh, do you paint that?" And I say, "No, I don't. I paint whatever I feel like painting." But there's just a persona, I think, related to a specific magazine, or Art of the West, or American Art Collector. There's an idea of what kind of art, that would be. So anyways, I'm going off on a tangent, but what I would just say is be really open-minded and try not to use the word I can't, because it's probably possible if you want to.
Well, let me give Alan a chance to respond there.
Cammie has certainly, we've gotten to know her work, gotten to know how serious she is. And we try to learn and understand from a lot of artists, try to understand what they're trying to accomplish, try to help where we can. We have our What's News section that we put any announcements in that are coming down that can help the collector. There's no charge for that. We try to counsel with the artists or galleries in any way we can, but it gets down to, number one, quality art, number two, Any magazine has its reason for existence. Sometimes Art of the West gets pigeonholed with cowboys and Indians, but it's certainly a lot more than that. And it basically gets down to just being good art. But we have so much appreciation and respect for the artists and for the galleries that are out there working that we try to do our part whenever we can. Sometimes we fall short, but we sure try not to.
Okay, and I'm going to pass this down to Robin and Leah's end, because I think Leah had an additional comment. And Robin, as a former gallery owner, how did you partner, like Cammie was describing, with both your artists and with a particular publication? Sorry, excuse me.
I just have a short thing to say that it sounds to me like what Cammie was saying, and I think even Kate, is that social media can be overwhelming and marketing can be overwhelming, but in the end it boils down, especially to artists who feel so much. We have to make a connection with humans, with organizations, and communities. And I think that's what helps us to bridge the gap a little.
I think maybe, the gallery world is changing a lot, as we all know, and art is being sold on the internet, and it's going to have enormous changes will occur in the next couple of years. I think if you're an emerging artist, it's really important that you advertise, and you advertise in print media, and you advertise regularly, even though it's expensive. Like Alan was saying, you just do a quarter page or a half page, whatever you can. It's very, very important to have that presence. And the print ads, they have legs. Social media is a couple seconds and then it's gone. So I'm not saying don't do it, but I think the print media is very important. For artists that are established, I feel that the gallery should be advertising for them. Now, I'm not saying that they can't once in a while put an ad in to support their galleries, but I do feel strongly that the gallery should be advertising whatever show is coming up, whether it's a solo show or a group show. So, but times are changing and expenses have just gone through the roof for galleries. And it's very, very tough. Galleries now compete against their artists. That's just the nature of it. You all have websites. You're all selling art on your website. That's, unless you're really, really fair and give your galleries a split, even though, sometimes you don't want to because you need the money. It drains the income from the galleries, and it's really affected galleries, and that's why a lot of galleries have disappeared.
Okay, I think time-wise, we have one more question. Is that right?
Yes, 5 more minutes.
Oh, we can get 2 succinct questions. Let's do it. Lori?
I have a question for Alan. I'm curious if there's a connection between the amount of advertising an artist does and whether they get articles in your magazine.
Advertorial versus editorial. Womp, womp, womp.
I'm glad you asked that. There has to be absolute division between advertising and editorial. If your editorial is going to have any type of integrity, it has to be separate. We have people that advertise with us that have never been featured. We have people, vice versa, that we have featured more than one time based on their quality of art, but have never advertised with us. We appreciate those people, obviously, that advertise with us. We watch them very closely. They don't get featured because they advertise with us. They get featured because they got quality work and they fit the mission of that particular issue. So it's got to be strictly separate or you have no integrity. Appreciate the question, though.
All right, and I want to give a shout out for the Art New England story, which mentions our show here at Bennington, but the piece is in a completely different direction about gender equity in the overall art world. And it's definitely editorial, not advertorial. It was just really well done, really nicely done. Okay, there was one in here and I've been missing you. Go ahead.
I just had a quick question, and it was brought up several times about advertising, both in social media and in print. What you recommended the contents of the ads be, whether you should focus more on having events or galleries that you're putting in, or if you should focus on general, here's my pieces, like what should the contents of your ads be for them to be more effective?
My one-word answer would be image, but that's because I'm an artist. If you had a one-word answer, let's pass this down.
Yeah, absolutely, it's the image. I mean, you just have to have a killer image to get someone's eye to come to that page.
Sometimes story helps.
Yeah, I'm going to second that. The story does help.
Okay, so story means we all have a narrative, and instead of the history or his story of art, it's the her story of art we're creating, yes?
I think it depends. Yes, a killer image if you want to have a consistent presence. But if you do have a specific show coming up, then you add a listing or something to support that people come out on that show. And that's what we do here with both the print and online exposure. It's a balance of both.
You're selling the piece of art, it's got to be the image.
Yeah, yes.
I want to give you a little background of what I think are the most disruptive things that haven't been mentioned. The auctions, the big auctions, and the recycling of dead artist work. I sat through the Coeur d'Alene auction a year ago, sold a couple of paintings there. I'd say 85% of the $28 million they raised in 5 hours of auctioning went to dead artists' work, not live artists' work. It also concerned me to see how many live artists' work were there, but if they went, they did not go for high values. And that auction thing has changed the whole nature of the business. When I finished and opened this place 22 years ago, for the first 13 years, and we hosted every major artist organization besides yours, SAA, plein air painters, everyone. Our sales grew steadily until 2007, when, as they say, the crap hit the fan economically. And ever since then, the auctions have changed the nature of it. I mean, our 20th anniversary of the Society of Animal Artists was the finest work we have ever had in 20 years. You know how many paintings we sold out of that show?
I hope you're going to say lots and lots, but I'm afraid you're not.
None, not one. Oh, yeah, we sold one. I bought one better for a cat in my desk. But, I mean, things have changed a lot with this. And a lot of the magazines now, like the Western Art Collector, they spend half their time featuring the auctions. And the way that, as I used to sit through, I watched that auction, I sat in the front row. The auctioneer auctioned 300 paintings in 5 hours, like nonstop, about a minute and a quarter per painting. And it raised 28 million, plus a buyer's premium of 17%. I mean, incredible. And that to me has changed the whole nature of the business here now. And we almost broke even in 2007. I don't want to tell you since then what it's been like, but it has not been fun.
And that would be the subject for an entirely separate all-day symposium.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a huge and very important point. And I think you could argue not just in Western art, too. I think you could go to New York and make the same claim. And especially for women who are artists as well, because once you start counting, we're significantly underrepresented in auctions, to say the least.
Can I ask one more little question?
I think that's your initial up there, so you can have definitely one more question.
Thank you. the Artist View 3 years in a row. Most of the sales were to me. You don't see them because they're in storage right now. Come back in the winter, you'll see them. We have quite a sizable collection. But we found that people love the show. You know, we'll start next week on this show. We give everybody coming in a ballot to pick their best painting, also to tell us how they got here. Very interesting marketing orders and marketing order. I've cut out all the Vermont magazines. Nobody ever checks them off. Our internet stuff is growing steadily. But overall, what's happening with the auction market is, if you bought a Howard Turpinning 20 years ago, you can now sell it for 10 times what you paid for it. And those people are getting older and dying, and their kids aren't interested in it. So they come back up to the auction. I accuse Stuart Johnson or Settlers West, you're recycling stuff over and over and over. You know, it's the ultimate recycling. But all that has changed the nature of this market a lot.
It has. You make a good point, and having to wrap this up and do a bunch of things all at once so that we can get you out in time for lunch, I'll just say we in this room have a chance to make an impact on that, because you have a whole room full of fabulous art over there, 2 rooms full of fabulous art, and you can all walk over there and buy a piece, and that'll say something to the auction world and make a contribution that way. I wish we could answer all the questions, and to have this kind of resource sitting right here and the brain power in this room, I wish we could spend the whole day taking advantage. I really appreciate the graciousness of our panel, and could we please give them a terrific round of applause? And I'm going to warn some of these guys on the way out. I have a feeling, especially you, dear, by everybody over the age of 40, you're going to get buttonholed. So I hope you're not in a rush. Thank you all for attending the symposium today, and thank you so much to Diane for all the work that she put into this. And one last round of applause for Diane. Judy Crow.